the differences between a 506B investment offering and a 506C investment offering. And I'm going to tell you why this is important. You know, there's a lot of people talking about raising capital these days, but you have to do it the right way. There's a lot of legalities to it. The SEC is monitoring and regulating this space. You need to understand what types of investors can you raise money from, right? And this 506B is for sophisticated and accredited investors, and 506C is for accredited investors. What the heck does all that mean? We're going to talk about that on today's video. So we are Disrupt Equity, Ben Suttles, Feras, Moussa. We are based in Houston, Texas. We've done over $800 million in multifamily and syndications, and we've raised almost $250 million from our investors.
All right, so the first one we're going to talk about is the 506B. These are exemptions that are outlined in the SEC laws that basically says, as an investor, as an operator, right, how can you raise money? What exemptions do you have so that you don't have to be registered with the SEC? Yeah. So with the 506B, what are the limitations? It really talks about being able to raise money, not just from accredited investors, and again, we'll talk about accredited investors here shortly whenever we talk about 506C, but you can raise money from what's called sophisticated investors. These are people that need to understand what they're investing in, right? So it can't just be anybody. There needs to be some sort of qualifications, some vetting, and you as the operator are responsible for that vetting. But ultimately, people can go in, say, hey, I'm a sophisticated investor. I understand the investment opportunity. And then as the operator, you are allowed to raise money from them. Now, that said, there's another limitation. You have to have a pre-existing relationship with these people. You can't be marketing it broadly saying, hey, sophisticated investors out there, come invest in the deal. No, you need to have it people that you've already communicated with, you have documented proof, or you have a history with, and you're only allowed to raise from 35 people. The SEC wants to avoid people that are going out and raising 1,000-person syndication from a bunch of sophisticated investors because they still see it as risk, right? What is the SEC trying to do? They're trying to protect people that are making investments that are going to impact their life. And so that's why they have the accredited requirements. They're trying to basically say, if you want to raise money, raise it from people that can afford to take a hit because they're not investing, a substantial portion of their net worth. So again, that's the 506B. So really to recap, 35 people are allowed that are sophisticated. They have to have a pre-existing relationship, and you can allow sophisticated and accredited investors.
And one thing to kind of add too, right, with the 506B, just to drive this point home, because this is one of the more important distinctions between the B and the C, is you cannot solicit online. So if you have a social media following, you cannot do a 506B offering and be like, hey, come one, come all, regardless if they're sophisticated or accredited or not. That's a big no-no with the SEC. So, you have to have a pre-existing relationship. You've had to have talked to these people. You've had to have vetted these people. They need to understand that, again, investing comes with risk and that they could potentially lose some or all of their investment. So it's important to make that distinction. And then again, you can have as many accredited investors as you'd like. It's a self-accreditation process on a 506B offering. But these are all legal documents that are going to be outlined by your PPM and an SEC attorney. So we're not legal advisors. We want people to take that advice from, there's a lot of great ones out there. They're going to be drafting your PPMs. They're going to be doing all the offering documents and all the filings with the SEC. And they'll give you additional advice as to staying in compliance with these with the SEC. So we just talked about the 506B offering and what that all entails. Now let's talk about the 506C offering. And as far as offering goes, most offerings are 506B, folks. So I just want to make that distinction. I think we read something where 90% of the offerings that get registered with the SEC are 506B. The other 10% are 506C, and that's in Charlie. What is a 506C offering? That is essentially allows you to broadly market the offering to anyone and everyone as long as you are taking money only from accredited investors. Now, what does accredited mean? Typically means you make a certain amount of income as a single or as a married couple each year, or you have a net worth over $1 million. I think right now each year pay is
changing the rules too. So make sure to read up the laws around what accreditation means, because it changes depending on when you watch this video.
And there's a lot of information on the SEC's website, but I think right now it's between $200,000 and $300,000 that you make each year. You're going to be making that this year, or your net worth is over $1 million, not including your personal residence. So again, the reason that they make that distinction in between the 506B and C and accredited and sophisticated is they're determining that accredited folks or make enough money or have enough net worth that if the investment goes belly up, doesn't work out, you lose some or all of your investment. that you're not going to take that big of a hit. You can trudge forward. It's not going to be your life savings. And so that's why they allow you to broadly market it to whoever. I can go out on the highway and buy a billboard and say, you want to invest in this offering. And as long as I take money only from accredited investors, that's in compliance with the 506C.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So as an operator, right, what are the requirements for you, right? Outside of completing, having the investors complete the legal documents that we've talked about, the accreditation is actually an important piece, right? You're no longer allowed to accept self-accreditation, right? With a 506B, a person can tell you they're accredited and you're allowed to basically accept that. You're checking a box. With a 506C, the rules have changed. You now have to get third-party accreditation. What is third-party accreditation? Well, it could be a person's CPA, could be their attorney, right? Or it could be a service focused on it. So there's services out there that focus on the accreditation. That's where they will work back and forth with the investor to make sure that person is accredited. And then you as the operator need to document that, have that saved on your side in case the SEC ever asks, right? So you want to stay in compliance. It's important because you don't want that to blow up the deal for the investors a year or two down the road.
And so unlike a 506B where you're capped at 35 sophisticated investors and you can have as many accredited as you want, on the 506C side, just because you're only raising from accredited investors, you can have as many as you'd like, right? There's no cap, there's no number that you have to stay in compliance with. Now, ultimately, you don't want to have 1,000 investors on any of your offerings, but at the end of the day, that's something to kind of take into consideration when you're looking at how are you speaking to your audience? How do you speak to your investors? Is it just a bunch of friends and family? In that case, probably just sticking with a B. B's easier, it's probably going to be a little bit cheaper. It's going to be a little bit more straightforward for you to do. But if, say, you have a big social media following and you're trying to capitalize on that, you're trying to monetize that following, maybe go with the 506C, just as long as you only raise money from accredited investors. That's the one big takeaway right now.
Absolutely.
So we talked about the 506B versus the 506C, the two different offerings. And there's other ones too. I don't want to go down too far a rabbit hole, but there's other ones too. There's a Reg A, there's a Reg CF, there's other various things. Again, talk with your PPM, your SEC attorney about these different offerings and seeing if any of those, coincide with what investment you're trying to kind of bring to the market. But we're just talking about the main ones today, folks, 506B and C. So again, B is going to be for people that you have a pre-existing relationship with, and you're capped at 35 sophisticated investors. Sophisticated meaning people that understand investing, understand how businesses work, understanding the risk of the investment that they're getting into, plus accredited investors. The 506C is only accredited investors, but you can market to whoever. If you've got 250,000 followers on Instagram, guess what? Now that Instagram could be your mic to go out and raise capital for your deals. The only caveat being is that you have to have a third party verify that those people are accredited. Those are the most important distinctions between the two. And like we mentioned before, Bs are typically more common and more utilized than the C, but Cs are starting to kind of get more broadly used.
No,
right?
Absolutely. And so you have to ask yourself, right, do you want to raise a smaller amount of money with less stringent requirements, or do you need to raise more money, but there's more complexity? Which of these are the right for you? And the answer is it depends, right? Yes. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And one thing maybe to add is maybe you're struggling to figure out what the right one is. The answer could be both, right? There's a lesser known rule that changed recently in the past few years that starts to allow what's called the 506B to C. Yeah. Now, again, know that that's a tool that's out there. There's, again, a bunch of rules you have around it, but it's a way that allows you to do basically both buckets of money, right? How do I raise money that is coming from some sophisticated investors? And then at some point, how do I cut that off and convert it into a C and raise money from those? And so again, these are different rules, different laws. We're not the experts. Please talk to SEC attorneys, but know that there's pros and cons to each of them.
And that's more of a complicated strategy. So yeah, definitely, get in touch with your attorney about how that works. The only other thing that I want to make a distinction about too is between the B and the C, it has nothing to do with the actual investment itself. People have also, do you give better returns or is it a different deal? No, it's the same thing, right? Again, like Feras is mentioning, it's all dependent on how you approach your investors, what investors you have. Right? Doesn't mean that this deal is better than that deal or these returns are higher than that returns. They're all the same. Yeah, it's just how you file it with the SEC.
Absolutely. And we're real estate guys, and I do also want to add to that too. It's not just about real estate either. We could raise money to go build an olive farm if we decided to, right? And it gets all of his real estate. We could raise money for a software startup, right?
No, that's true.
It doesn't matter. This is purely about the rules of raising money and how you can do it. What the investment is, it could be anything.
And I think that that's the powerful thing, right? Once you know how to raise capital, you can raise capital for any endeavor that you have, right? As long as it's legal, right? You know, maybe you do have a startup idea or you have some business that you want to go buy. These are the same things, regardless if it's commercial real estate or buying a business, that you're raising capital, and you have to obviously do it through this SEC regulatory environment, that process that they kind of outline between the B and the C. If you found this helpful, folks, remember, this is just for informational purposes only. Please work with your legal team. Your lawyer that is drafting the PPM is the one that's going to be filing these offerings through the SEC. They are the experts. There might be some new way and strategy that they might know about that you should also talk about. Again, it's all up to how do you want to raise money? What type of investors do you have? And I think that those people can help kind of guide you through this path. So if you like today's video, please check us out at www.disruptequity.com. We're all on all the social media channels. And if you're interested in potentially investing with us down the road, please check us out at team@disruptequity.com. Our investor relations team is here to help answer any questions. They'll give you the breakdown of the 506B and C.
So there you have it. That's a 506B, 506C, right? The two ways to raise money. And again, there's a couple of other ones, but these are the most common ways. And that's really what you need to know. Go talk to your advisors before you make any decisions. Understand how to do these. Figure out what's right for you. Because again, what's right for you may not be what's right for us, and vice versa. And so ultimately, you're marrying the equity to the investment opportunity to your skill set and trying to accomplish something to help you complete that business plan.
And check us out for more content in the future.